The UK has announced that it is banning Russian aviation and space-related exports. The ban includes technology, components, insurance, and reinsurance products, Bloomberg reported, citing the Foreign Office. Foreign Secretary Liz Truss has stated the UK government will now reserve the right to detain any Russian aircraft in the UK. It'll now be a criminal offense for any Russian aircraft to fly and land in the UK. Continued action is being taken across the world against Russia for its invasion of Ukraine, which has now been ongoing for just shy of a fortnight. Aircraft owned, operated, or chartered by anyone connected with Russia can now be detained by the UK. The ban includes any aircraft owned, operated, or chartered by anyone connected with Russia or designated individuals or entities, and will include the power to detain any aircraft owned by persons connected with Russia, the Foreign Office said in a statement. Furthermore, Russia's flagship airline Aeroflot is halting almost all its international flights over fears that its planes will be impounded overseas by countries that have imposed sanctions on Russia's aviation industry in retaliation for President Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. The state-owned Aeroflot offered flights to 146 destinations worldwide before Russian troops crossed the border into Ukraine last month. The flag carrier has halved its international route numbers since the invasion began, prompted by the EU, the US, and Canada closing their airspace to Russian planes. The closure not only sealed off Aeroflot's flights to Europe and North America, but also any destination that required crossing the now blocked airspace. Industry analyst Rob Stollard of Vertical Research Partners told Reuters the combination of sanctions and closed airspace has left Russia's aviation sector similar to where it was under Soviet rule. On February 27, Canada and Europe announced that they would close their airspace to Russian airlines in response to the invasion. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the European Union would shut down its airspace to planes owned, registered, or controlled by Russians, including the private jets of oligarchs. They won't be able to land in, take off, or overfly the territory of the EU, she added. Some non-Russian airlines such as Delta Airlines suspended its code-sharing partnership with Aeroflot, which allowed airlines to sell seats on each other's flights. We've removed our code from Aeroflot-operated services beyond Moscow's Sheremetyevo Airport and removed Aeroflot's code from Delta-operated services from Los Angeles and New York JFK. Accommodations will be made for customers affected by these changes, Delta said in a statement on February 25th, adding that it doesn't operate flights to Ukraine or Russia. Russia had been enjoying a rare and robust aviation recovery as the only global market where domestic air traffic last year, according to the International Air Transport Association, a global trade group. But the airline industry there has been hit hard in the last 2 weeks as countries around the world have imposed flight bans and sanctions on Russia because of President Vladimir V. Putin's decision to invade Ukraine. Mr. Putin and President Alexander G. Lukashenko of Belarus are allies, and Russian air forces have attacked Ukraine from Belarus. Separately, Russia's aviation authority, Rosaviatsia, recommended on Saturday that Russian airlines with planes registered in foreign jurisdictions suspend all flights abroad from Sunday because of fears that they could be seized by foreign governments. The suspension effectively leaves a handful of Western companies with no way of recovering hundreds of planes leased to Russian carriers. Industry analyst Rob Stollard of Vertical Research Partners told Reuters the combination of sanctions and closed airspace has left Russia's aviation sector similar to where it was under Soviet rule. On February 27, Canada and Europe announced that they would close their airspace to Russian airlines in response to the invasion. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the European Union would shut down its airspace to planes owned, registered, or controlled by Russians, including the private jets of oligarchs. Recent sanctions gave those leasing companies until March 28th to end their contracts with airlines in Russia. With dozens of Western countries and Russia having issued reciprocal flight bans, the only hope those companies had for recovering their planes would have been to have Russian airlines deliver them to a neutral country, experts said. The industry's mushrooming crisis is unprecedented, unpredictable, and unforecastable, said Max Kingsley Jones of Ascend by Cirium Aviation Consultancy. With no clarity on how long the sanctions from US and EU authorities will remain in place, experts warn that in a worst-case scenario, Russian domestic carrier schedules would shrink to levels not seen in 3 decades. The sanctions have brought the industry into charted territory, said Richard Abulafia, the managing director at Aerodynamic Advisory, an aviation consultancy. The Cape Town Convention of 2001 governs the terms under which planes are leased and seized, but it didn't really plan for rewards and sanctions, Abulafia said. If leasing companies have to write off their assets, as seems likely, they cannot look to insurers either. The bizarre thing is, on February 28, the EU gave these companies a month to unwind their leasing contracts, but insurance policies were rendered null and void under the sanctions almost immediately. Abulafia said. The EU's sanctions prohibit the sale, transfer, supply, or export of aircraft or any components, while the US has introduced export restrictions including on Russia's aerospace sector. The industry's mushrooming crisis is unprecedented, unpredictable, and unforecastable, said Max Kingsley Jones of Ascend by Cirium, the aviation consultancy. With no clarity on how long the sanctions from US and EU authorities will remain in place, experts warn that in a worst-case scenario, Russian domestic carrier schedules would shrink to levels not seen in 3 decades. The sanctions have brought the industry into charted territory. The Russian aviation sector is now on a footing that is similar to North Korea and Iran, and similar to where it was under Soviet rule, noted Rob Stallard, an analyst and Vertical Research Partners. Russia's carriers have been hit just as they were drawing the line under the disruption caused by the coronavirus pandemic. Expectations of a steady and sustained rebound in domestic demand have been replaced, at least for now, by extreme volatility. In a sign of concern, the US, French, and UK governments this week advised their citizens to leave the country while commercial flights were still available. Yet with economists predicting that the Russian economy will soon be driven into a deep recession, local aviation executives are braced for a sharp decline in domestic demand. There will naturally be a serious correction in demand, said one executive. There are a lot of reasons, including stress for the economy. Oleg Panteleev, head of Russian Aviaport Analytical Agency, said Russia could turn to seedy alternatives if inventory runs out, like unauthorized parts from China or under-the-table supplies from Iran. Of course, it would be good for Russia to find suppliers and partners in third countries who would be ready to ensure stable shipments of all necessary components, Panteleev told Reuters. But if these countries say they're afraid of sanctions, Russia would need to search for foreign specialists and create a maintenance system at Russian factories. Some analysts worry about companies cannibalizing other planes on the ground, including those owned by lessors. Russians can still fly foreign airlines to a number of destinations in the Middle East and Central Asia, including Armenia and Uzbekistan. Yet no airline, Russian or foreign, now flies between Russia and China, despite concerns that the two countries' economies will be more closely connected in the wake of Western sanctions. Beijing's strict controls on international flights may be a cause of the lack of flights. The country operates a 5-1 policy in which local airlines can run only one international flight per week to any country, and foreign airlines can operate only one flight to China per week. Aeroflot flew direct flights to China throughout the pandemic, including during a period when Chinese nationals were banned from entering Russia owing to COVID fears. The ban was lifted in June 2021, yet Aeroflot's cancellations mean there are currently no direct flight links between China and Russia. According to IBA, an aviation consulting firm, there are nearly 600 foreign-owned planes currently leased to airlines in Russia. Those planes are worth an estimated $12 billion, about a third of which belongs to Irish lessors, according to Ishka, another aviation consulting firm. AerCap, which is based in Dublin, is the most exposed, with an estimated 142 leased aircraft in Russia, according to IBA. The company is the world's largest leasing company for commercial planes, and its customers include Aeroflot and Rosia. Russian carriers could continue to use the leased planes in the weeks ahead, given the sanctions and obstacles to returning them. But sanctions can make it difficult for Russian airlines to use foreign-made aircraft inside the country for long, because companies such as Boeing and Airbus suspended parts, maintenance, and technical support services after the invasion. The airlines have some spare parts on hand, but experts question how long they'll last. Most of the aircraft leased to Russian carriers are Boeing or Airbus planes. If the war continues, Russia may end up as an aviation black hole. Some airlines such as Turkish Airlines and Emirates are still serving Russia, but it's unclear how long they'll continue, so Russians wishing to leave their country will feel compelled to do so sooner rather than later. If you think something about Russia aviation should be in the video, let us know in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed our video, make sure you check out the following videos here.